All righty. I'm gonna try and be as polite as I can. I've got beautiful sunlight glowing in, lighting up my wonderful fucking halo from behind me. I have some stubble, but I don't want you to to think that that makes me any less of a woman. You know what I mean? I'm an actor, so I have to act throughout the full realm or the full range of my capabilities. And I want to just have a discussion with you, Hannah, regarding your statement that you are a supportive of LGBTQ rights, and you're staking your claim on two things. It seems like killing cats. You want to kill pussy cats to protect wildlife, if I have that correct. And you don't think that trans women are real men. Well, first you have to differentiate between whether they are making a literal statement or whether they are making a what's the word? A metaphorical statement, maybe. Or maybe there's another better word. It was there and it popped out of my head. But a colloquialism of it takes a real man, you know what I mean, is quite common. Right. Again, this is something that's been criticised by feminists. So what I'm basically claiming is that between all the cat killing and language, gobbledygook, you are just confusing all the children and leading them into witches' fucking candy house. I'm going to stand in front of the sun like that. Witches' candy houses filled with fucking pedophiles. You are then, I don't know, you're setting up like a recruitment service for pedophiles, it seems, and you are waving multicolored crayons in front of everyone's fucking eyes and keeping us all captive while you discuss the intricacies of the different meanings of potential phrases. See, I, as a trans ally and potential trans person, but I, like my vaccination status, like all medical decisions, I like to keep those things, to myself. I don't feel the need to reveal my breasts and dance around like a lunatic in order to feel comfortable in my skin. But the term "real man," these flyers, and I had nothing to do with them, but I am just bringing it to your attention and to the attention of the West Australian and all the other newspapers that wish to jump on board this cat killing expedition. Did a cat scratch you or something on the face when you were little? You know what I mean? I do realize that birds, fly up in the air, most of them. Yeah. And the swimming pools and the Dale Alcock, imitation Bali fucking swimming pool, pergola, fucking 5-bedroom, 2-garage households really are taking up a whole lot more space than Moggles, than Mr. Mogglesworth. But hey, let's get off the pussies and let's talk about who's a pussy, because a pussy is a colloquialism for in Australia. Maybe not in your crowd, but to the general population, which will as in an even Pareto distribution will contain some trans folk. But a pussy is someone who's kind of a coward. They're scared, right? So they're a pussy. Again, the feminists have led us down the path of condemning the use of pussy, despite the fact that a pussy is something you're trying to kill. And, it is only a colloquialism for a female reproductive organ which trans women do not need to possess. Are you following along? Okay, but my claim is that the flyer, with the trans coloration, is a supportive statement for the trans community. It is perhaps a supportive statement for the unseen and the closeted trans community, saying that it takes a real man to transition, to be trans, to admit that you have this phenomenon. It takes, and it does take a real man. It doesn't matter whether at the end of that you say you're a woman. But basically what I'm saying is I'm not paying you, right, to comb through the dictionary, and bring up every single little nuance of every little phrase that could have ever existed, on top of losing thousands of computers, via Western power. And on top of, all the other nonsense, on top of the cigarette, if you go to my Facebook page, if you can see it, there is a list of evidence that I'm documenting on your corruption. And you will find an anti-smoking advertisement that very much like this, like you are accusing this trans women are real men poster of being an anti-trans thing. I'm absolutely declaring that your anti-smoking advertisement is an advertisement to convince people to smoke. He literally opens the drawer where there is a pack of cigarettes and then smiles at the camera. And then the phrase is, "You'll give up eventually." That's, you know what I mean? And I will remind you that the Australian government is the largest beneficiary of the exorbitant taxation on cigarettes that I believe contain, new and exotic neurotoxins to persuade people to go to the black market, to which your policing activities also, you're running an organized criminal organization and killing cats, and people love cats. And you're using this ridiculous English language, which is written in every single dystopian book, and you're following that to the letter. See, as a trans ally, right? Absolutely trans, and as a trans person, a discreet trans person, okay? Because, as I said before, it takes a real man to be a trans woman, because as soon as I did it, I got abused. So you're right to protect trans people. I'm just not happy with the way that you're doing it, because you're doing it out of a preconception that all trans individuals would be submissive trans and need protecting. Despite the fact that pre-existing representations in media, most notably the Silence of the Lambs and Silence of the Lambs. I had another one, but I can't remember it. Oh yeah, Shawshank Redemption. Two of the most famous movies ever made. Both portray a homosexual person with feminine, things being an absolute domineering, tyrannical abuser. Now, I'm not saying that all trans people are that. That is the bigotry, and that you are right. That needs to be turned around a bit, like sharks, need to be not as afraid because of Jaws, and cats need to not be as murdered because of, I don't know, Milo and Otis. Like, are you filming Milo and Otis at the Malaga Film Studios? Because when I see cats in the environment, I really do see them as doing way less damage than humans. You know what I mean? We've devastated the wheat belt. We've devastated our water table. We've poisoned every square centimetre. And we continuously keep building these luxurious palaces of energy consumption. It's just that the only thing you're ever selling is a product. And I'm selling, efficiency and frugality, which is my tradition of my heritage. I don't know whether it's yours. I don't know whether you were, a concubine in a Chinese emperor's palace. I'm not sure. It seems like perhaps your father, if he is your father, was Kim Beazley your father? I haven't checked, but I'm assuming he was. Was he trained as a Japanese sumo wrestler? I don't know. All I know that he was the governor before the police, and the police are making a killing. Both sides of this war against tobacco and this war against the English language, this war against pamphlets that are in support of an unseen, and most most, potentially having a hard time, most troubled because they're still conflicted. You're expecting to just turn a light switch on and all the little trans kiddies jump into bed with all the people that have, pre-assigned contracts to be foster parents or whatever it is, whatever else nonsense that you're trying to do, while you take people's children off them, maybe because they have a cat, or maybe because they swear, or maybe because, I don't know, they don't want to make their medical decisions public. But it's really the war against pussy that you are waging across the land that I'm most concerned with, because that is a absolute hallmark of psychopathology. You know what I mean? And that is what is going in my notes, because this is my notes here that I will send back on my observation, addressing your clear psychopathology of having this hypocritical, juxtaposition of murdering millions and millions of cats to appease your Chinese overlords, and then claiming to be supportive of LGBTQ people by condemning a cleverly written pun, on top of the trans flag. They're either incredibly bad anti-trans activists, or they're incredibly clever trans allies that are doing this. Now, this is just a preview of the way that you will be torn to shreds with the words I'm saying, with the language, with our historical precedents, because of the horrific actions you have been taking all across the land. You have nowhere to go at all. There is nowhere for you to escape this. Okay? Now, I am not sure how the Labor Party, a group of, hardworking, like myself, hardworking manual tradesmen, laborers, miners, all these things that, the people that labored under this boiling sun that is making my forehead sweat here for the last 200 years. I'm not sure how they got infiltrated by this nonsense and how they continuously support you and your ridiculous, policies. Most tradesmen I know, their wife or their girlfriend likes cats. It doesn't make any sense. They like interesting puns. They are able to hold this capacity of a thing. And I think it is the perfect statement. And so if I was going to run in opposition, perhaps I'll handball this to Basil Zemflis, I would put that I would exactly use that as my poster to show my support of trans people. But I'd maybe rephrase it to, it takes a real man to be a trans woman. Just slightly, a little bit out of ambiguity and just a little bit there. It takes a real man to be a trans woman. I can tell you. Now, whether I end up living my life as a woman or living my life as a man, I haven't decided yet. Now, that is a valid response. Okay? Isn't it? Obviously, medical decisions recently, we've had a bit of a trend of that not being a valid. Well, you better eat your kebab and get your vaccine and fucking go for whatever, But as far as I'm aware, taking your time is actually legally a binding, requirement of all medical advice. And considering everyone who would be transitioning into a trans woman would obviously have been declared as a trans man, that's the whole ideology rolled up right there. So it does one of two things. It either prepares them for the very courageous action that they may take if they feel that way inclined to do this, and we are showing our support, right? Because they're coming from that world. You're trying to create a world that is producing, like a farm, producing trans children for a constantly now promoted, in the same way that you sold cigarettes, this global sex trafficking of trans people. I have recently, I've consumed pornography, which is, again, I think that's all you have really got, is that all the women play on this, like, men all watch porn, we've got them. It's like, yeah, every guy watches porn. I've never been to Thailand. I've never had any interaction with any trans people, right? Whatever, that doesn't matter. And I started watching trans porn, and I had a taste for it. It's not because I'm gay. Well, maybe it is because I'm gay. Maybe it's because I'm trans. But actually, the thing was, I went, oh, it's actually a really inspiring thing to see, weirdly, as someone I wasn't homophobic. I didn't like men. Do you know what I mean? Because men kill people. This is men are the number one killers. You would be more than above this, I'm sure, with your rhetoric that you spurt all the time. So as a man, as a protective man of my family, I have a predisposition to not like other men. Okay? Not a crime. That's caution. It's evolution. It's whatever. The moment I saw two men being women in embrace, it was really inspiring to me. I was surprised at how little repulsion I had. All those things, right? All the homophobia built out because of pornography, not because of grooming, not because of industrial scale production of the product, maybe a little bit because of, an openness, which I'm not against. I'm against the continued mass industrialization of a clearly, again, not condoning, of a clearly high and lucrative product, right, through our socialized medical system, through our, completely grossly negligent government system. It's not what I want. It's not what anyone wants. You know what I mean? It isn't our last resort as a nation to make little butterfly fucking children. Even the usage of the butterfly, claiming that this is a natural metamorphosis that takes place. Well, my example kicks that in the face, because my example is, in order to speak politically to the authorities, which is you, because you're in charge, you're in power, your party is in power, your father was the governor, your father was the police commissioner, all of the things. You are the authority. So was Mark McGowan. So was Roger Cook. In order to speak to this, with the passion and the involvement to elicit the change that I wish to see, I have to feminize my adapted masculine defensive strategies, which were required in this fucking dusty fucking shithole of a colony, which I was almost murdered by 10, migrants from New Zealand and 10 AFL playing minors, 17-year-olds, for doing nothing. So I had to develop this, this prickly exterior, which then was utilized by the women directly paid by your government to imprison me for violence. And now to speak to you, I have to lower and feminize. And that's a big jump. So I have to feminize down. And if I'm going to feminize, I may as well experience the full level. So you are trying to impose a complete ideology over the top of something that is literally the birth and the fertile ground, the civil political precedent that you have recently been allowed to enter. And the first thing you do is you organize to kill cats and sterilize and mutilate as many children as you can. And I don't know about you, but it's like that wasn't even on the cards of the objections towards letting women enter the feminized political process. They didn't scream it from the rooftops. It was never written down. It was known amongst the people, amongst the parliamentarians. I can guarantee you. Considering this stems from the Westminster system in England, this created the kind of the homosexual kind of vibe of English people. That's what civilization was. Oh, we're civilized. You can look at this, and all throughout history, you can look at like the penises on Greek statues being small because of all of the things, okay? So I suggest you start opening a history book and really getting it before you're in jail for crimes against cats and mass indoctrination. All that, this list goes on from a position of authority, from the household of the ex-police commissioner and the I don't know if he ever was the premier, but the governor who strolled out and placed a literal police. So you are running a police state, that is now distributing gore. I just saw a person, I don't know whether they're dead or not, in a motorbike accident. You're down the bottom of the barrel. You are right down at the bottom of the barrel. I don't want my police officers having a podcast. It's not, you know what I mean? This isn't Grand Theft Auto, despite the way that your police advertisements made it look like. Yeah, you're policing the English language against England, which means every book, every university, every library, every historian is now on the opposite side of the table to you, and it's landing on your response to make a claim that everything I've said here is what? Far-right extremist propaganda? Is that what you're going to say? I can't see how that would be. But I await your response eagerly, with anticipation. Is burgeoning anticipation? I don't know. I wait it. This scar is a metaphorical scar. I drew it on with a crayon. I might just continuously draw scars, of the scars that are left, like the real scars that are left from your gross negligence in governance, inflicted by your socialized mental health strategies, in which you basically left two mentally ill people with me at all times, and I was their sole observer and sole curator in some cases. So, as I said, I await your response eagerly.